This British farm hid two bodies for nearly 50 years, and the pigs knew first. In a forgotten corner of Wales, on a farm surrounded by rolling fields and silence, something horrifying was discovered. Two siblings, both elderly, were found dead inside their remote farmhouse. The year was 1976. The official version claimed tragedy. The villagers whispered murder, and for nearly 50 years, no one dared to dig too deep. But decades later, this cold case would be pulled back into the spotlight as investigators reopened the files and unsettling new questions began to surface. The victims were siblings, Griff Thomas, 73 years old, and his sister Patti Thomas, 70 years old. They lived together on an isolated farm near Llangolman in Pembrokeshire, Wales. Their home sat deep in the countryside, far from the nearest neighbors, surrounded by fields, livestock, and dense silence. Both lived simple, quiet lives. They had no children, no criminal records, and no known enemies. To locals, the Thomases were private but respected. They were known as hard-working, independent, and self-reliant, typical of many farming families in rural Wales during the 1970s. Nothing in their lives suggested that violence would one day find them. In December of 1976, the peaceful isolation of the Thomas farm was shattered. Concern grew when neighbors realized they had not seen Griff or Patti for several days. Eventually, someone went to check on them. Inside the farmhouse, both siblings were found dead. The exact condition of the bodies was deeply unsettling, but official reports released few public details at the time. What was immediately clear, however, was that both had died under mysterious circumstances. There were no signs of forced entry, no immediate suspects, and no clear explanation. The discovery sent shockwaves through the tiny village of Llangolman, and whispers of foul play began to circulate almost instantly. When Dyfed Powys police launched their initial investigation, they quickly put forward a theory that many found difficult to accept. According to the official report, this was a tragic case of murder-suicide. Investigators suggested that one sibling may have killed the other before taking their own life, but there was no suicide note. No clear motive ever surfaced. Both victims were elderly, with no known history of violence or conflict. The police found no evidence of forced entry, no witnesses, and no definitive explanation for what had happened inside the farmhouse. Despite the unanswered questions, authorities closed the case without filing any criminal charges. Many in the community quietly questioned whether the full truth had been uncovered. In the years following the deaths, many residents of Llangolman and the surrounding villages refused to fully accept the official version. The murder-suicide theory never sat comfortably with those who knew Griff and Patti. Locals spoke in hushed tones about alternative possibilities, that perhaps a third person had been involved, that the siblings might have been victims of a robbery, or that an argument with someone outside the family had turned deadly. The isolated nature of the farm made it easy for rumors to grow. Without clear answers, the deaths of Griff and Patti Thomas became a local legend, a dark mystery hidden behind the stone walls of a lonely farmhouse. For more than 40 years, the case remained frozen. There were no new arrests, no suspects, and no major public updates. The Thomas farmhouse eventually stood as a silent reminder of the tragedy, with many in the village still believing that the full truth had never been told. Over time, official files gathered dust, and the deaths faded from national attention. Yet, within the small Pembrokeshire community, the questions never fully disappeared. Families who had lived nearby in 1976 continued to quietly debate what had really happened that winter. And then, almost half a century later, something changed. In October of 2022, the case took an unexpected turn. Dyfed Powys police officially reopened the investigation under the name Operation Hallam. Advancements in forensic science offered the possibility of re-examining evidence collected back in 1976. New interviews were conducted, and old case files were carefully reviewed. Investigators hoped that modern technology could finally shed light on unanswered questions that had haunted the community for decades. However, authorities released few public details about what, if anything, had been discovered. The reopening of the case reignited local speculation and brought renewed national attention to the mysterious deaths of Griff and Patti Thomas. Although no literal pig pen was part of the official investigation, the image took hold as a powerful symbol of the hidden nature of this crime. The farm, with its animals and isolated fields, stood as a silent witness to a tragedy that had remained unsolved for nearly 50 years. On the surface, it was an ordinary piece of rural Wales, livestock roaming, crops growing, neighbors going about their lives. But beneath that quiet exterior, two deaths had occurred under circumstances that never fully made sense. Over time, the farm became almost like a graveyard of secrets. The pigs symbolized nature carrying on as normal, while the truth remained buried. The fields held no answers, the house gave no more clues, and for decades, nothing disturbed what had happened inside those walls. Only when modern forensic teams returned decades later, reopening evidence and files, did anyone truly attempt to dig deeper. The metaphor of the pig pen became a way to describe how something dark can hide in plain sight, invisible, yet always present beneath the soil of ordinary life. Even after nearly 5 decades, the deaths of Griff and Patti Thomas remain officially unresolved. Despite the reopening of the case in 2022 under Operation Hallam, no suspects have been named, no charges have been filed, and authorities have released almost no public updates on the progress of their renewed investigation. The original police theory of murder-suicide still lingers in the official record, but it has never satisfied many in the community. The absence of clear motives, the lack of a suicide note, and the strange circumstances surrounding both deaths have continued to fuel doubts. Complicating matters further is the limited forensic evidence available from the 1970s. While modern technology offers new possibilities, the condition and preservation of old evidence present serious challenges. Detectives working the reopened investigation have conducted fresh interviews with surviving witnesses, family members, and villagers, but no major breakthrough has been confirmed. For the families, for the neighbors who still remember, and for those following the case across the country, the central question remains as haunting now as it was in 1976. What really happened inside that farmhouse, and who, if anyone, was responsible? Nearly 50 years after Griff and Patti Thomas were found dead inside their quiet farmhouse, the case remains frozen between suspicion and silence. The official version has never convinced everyone, and the truth, whatever it may be, has stayed locked behind farm walls, unanswered and unsettling. Operation Hallam reopened old wounds, but so far no public resolution has followed. The farm in Llangolman still stands as a silent witness, while the people who once whispered about what happened grow older, carrying those unanswered questions with them. This is one of Britain's quietest unsolved cases, one that almost no one outside this Welsh village has ever heard about until now. If you want to hear more forgotten true crime stories that the mainstream never covers, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Was this a murder-suicide, or has a killer remained hidden for nearly 5 decades? Let us know what you believe.